the last trip we took, Cece and I went down to Southern California. We were working with the guys from California Range Weekend. It's a big event that happens every year down in SoCal. We do it it happens in November. It happens actually Veterans Day weekend. We just did a podcast on this, and it was a long weekend. We had to make a big trip down. It would usually take about 5.5 hours maybe to get there. It was miserable. It was Father's Day weekend. We traveled. It was like a 7.5 hour trip, which really throws me off for a couple of reasons as it relates to nutrition. But then it was bell to bell all day Saturday. We were up early, 5:30, went till like 11 o'clock, 11:30 at night, kind of straight on through. And then we're up again the next morning at 6 a.m. to be out the door and on the road to travel back so we can spend time with the rents and the kids on Sunday. So, and that trip took us 4.5 hours to get back. Like, it was super fast, maybe even less. The point of that is like, that was just a long weekend with the nutrition piece. And so if I get really behind, like going into a weekend like that, I know I'm a disaster. And so there's some planning that goes into nutrition. And while we were down there, I had a couple guys ask me, so like, what's going on with the workouts and nutrition these days for you? It's a natural conversation that comes up or whatever when I see these guys, because they know what we do on the podcast and for work and whatever. We got into it, and they're asking me this while we're munching food right out on the range, right in between stuff. And I'm looking around, nobody's eating, nobody's drinking, they're drinking Monsters and shit like that. And I'm like, well, we plan. Like, there's a lot we think about it. There's a lot of planning that goes into the nutrition piece, but I'm not going to get into everything that I do for my nutrition. But they're like, okay, well, what do you do for this though? Like, I have a really hard time with this part, or I have a really hard time with that part, or I just never do this, or, do you do this? I hear other people are doing that. So you answer a lot of questions and inspired, I think, this podcast to kind of talk about, like, people, what I find is, like, people find excuses sometimes, but there's also reasons, legit reasons why they have a tough time getting enough protein in, getting their hydration done, like, not eating out as often. They go to the convenient stuff, the DoorDashes and the Uber Eats and things like that. There's always a lot of questions around that. I have to be honest. Like, I tell them, I go, dude, I don't do any of that. Like, I don't do any of that. We don't do any Uber Eats. We don't do any DoorDashing. God, I mean, there was just so much stuff. I'm just like, man, maybe here's a solution, but that's not a problem, that I have, because we are very planned with our nutrition. And it's not necessarily because I like doing it. I fucking hate it.
I know that when that day comes around during the week, when we have to go to the grocery store, we're both just like, oh God, we have to go to the grocery store again.
It's turned into a joke. Like, there's always a little bit of bantering and bickering that goes on, like, where are we going to go or whatever. But it's a necessary evil, and it's there's a routine to it, just like going to the gym. And we end up getting it done. And it proves vital to the success of the week with regard to nutrition, workouts, and everything else. So carving out the time. So I think there's like some solutions for some few things. I just thought we'd go around the table and kind of talk about, like, what are some of the things that you do to be successful with, like, your nutrition plan? Because those are the things that tend to fall off the easiest when people run into busy schedules or challenges or events or things like that. So I'll tell you this. So go back to the drive. Like, I did not expect it to be 7.5 hours down. I thought, so we ate before we left, and then we knew there would be there's a place along the way that we stop and sometimes can kind of refuel a little bit. Well, we were only going to have a little bit because we knew we were going to be meeting for dinner when we arrived. And however, all of that whole plan fell apart. So basically we went like 7 hours, no food. To say I was cranky, and
we did have, you asked if we had snacks,
right?
And we did have
there were some snacks on board, but not like, it was like the snacks would have been like, well, I can have a handful of those, like, because I'm not making a meal out of that, kind of thing. So we can talk about the snacks and what they were and stuff. But so by the time I got there, I was already way behind and I was trying to catch up. And then that turned into actually some poor decision making once we got there. I think we reeled it back, but we had food and ate food that I would have not typically eaten. I mean, we stay pretty disciplined and pretty regular. So by no means are we perfect, but when we got there, I was like, I could eat the ass end out of a dead rhino right now. Just hose it off, push it through, and I'll just take off a slab, kind of thing. And it was just like, yep, and bring me another beer. because I'm like, I need to take the edge off kind of thing. I was like super anxious. But again, like I was so hungry, I didn't give a shit. Like it was like whatever hit the table, I was eating it.
That happens to people all the time.
All the time.
But the positive there is that we were sharing it with everybody else. So it wasn't like whatever hit the table, it was all you and you were eating it. Like everybody was eating it.
So you're saying
it's not
the guilt was shared across the table?
Exactly.
It was a collective guilt.
Yeah. No, I mean, there was just like, I know this isn't good and I don't give a shit and I'm doing it because this is what I'm doing.
And we don't ordinarily eat like that.
Typically do that, but I just kind of got past it. And then, but there was what happened the next day, which again, we kind of reeled it back. But that was a thing, like, and I think that happens to people in their regular day lives. Like they don't plan very well or something hits them in the side of the head. They had breakfast or maybe they didn't. They had a cup of coffee on the way out the door and a granola bar from the vending machine, or whatever was in the desk drawer in the break room,
In the desk drawer. The auxiliary snack.
And then they get to the very end of the day and they're fucking starving and they just put down whatever. And
comes up all the time.
I'll be the first to tell you, I ate like an asshole that night. I mean, I knew full well what I was doing and that it wasn't going to treat my gut very well, that it was not highly nutritiously dense. It was very high fat, very high sodium. And, I suffered some consequences, but at the same time, I was like, no, I'm fully aware of what I'm doing right now. I'm just fucking doing it. But I think you do that too many times during the week, on a regular basis, it becomes a problem.
Yeah, it accumulates for people.
Yeah. So anyway, that was like the travel thing. I think I could relate to people with like the long work day thing. It's just not typical. It's not what we typically do. I mean, what are you doing, on a weekly basis? How do you organize your nutrition through the week? I mean, you don't have to tell us like every fucking meal, Stephen, but like, how do you set yourself up for success?
Well, I mean, I guess as far as how I construct my meals, when I'm going about sort of planning what I want to eat, I always lead with protein. I build my meals around the protein source. And for me, that just seems like, well, yeah, of course that's what, of course that's what you do. But the more I work with people, the more I see that their meals are almost just kind of like, I'm like, that's a side. That's not a meal. So the first thing that I always do is, I am a pretty big meat eater, and that's usually going to be my main protein source. But I do mix it up. It's like, okay, I just had chicken. I'm gonna have some beef. All right, I just had chicken. I just had beef. I'm gonna have some fish. I mix in a little bit of pork here and there. Sometimes pork doesn't seem to agree with me too much. I'd feel a little inflamed afterwards. Finding good pork, responsibly raised, is hard to find.
I'm the same, man.
But then, okay, I've had chicken, I've had beef, I've had fish, maybe I'll have some ground turkey. But the idea is that I'm always building the meal around protein. And then from there, I mean, really, it's kind of like, it's almost like the square plate that, maybe you were taught as a child. Like, all right, I have my meat, I have my quote unquote starch, and I have my vegetables.
It's a simple premise, right? And it works.
Yeah, and it works, and that's really how I go about it. And I mix those things up, and I try to make the choices. Try to make the upgraded choices as best as possible. Okay, if I'm having chicken, maybe I'm going to have some wild rice. Okay, then what vegetable am I going to have? Or if I'm having beef, all right, maybe I'm going to have some sweet potato, and what vegetable am I going to have? That's really how I go about constructing my meals, leading with protein.
Yeah, it's the same for us. I mean, like Cece, you can jump in any time here, but I guess the thing is I always know that the protein thing is going to be, number one, it's the most important thing for me. Like it's just, to me, it's the most delicious and should be the most delicious thing on the plate. Like I am a meat eater. I eat a lot of it. And it's at basically every meal I'm eating some animal at every meal I'm eating animal protein. And so like that quality of that protein and what I'm about to put in needs to be very high, going back to the responsibly raised, type of organic,
grass-fed, free range.
Yeah. So we work to get that, and we can talk about that. But I always know that that's what's coming in, and it should taste good. So we work hard to like keep it simple, but at the same time, like we know this tastes good. Like so when I look forward to sitting down and eating that protein,
dry ass chicken breast and broccoli.
I think a lot of people struggle with that. I mean, I did. So let's go back to like the chicken thing. Like I just ate so much shitty chicken because I prepared it like the worst ways possible for so long, trying to eat like a bodybuilder. Like I have a phobia of it.
Aversion.
I have an aversion to chicken. Like I see a chicken breast sitting on my plate and I'm just like, I ain't eating that
PTSD.
shit. Yeah, I'm not eating it.
Yeah.
I really have to be forced into it. I have to force myself into eating. It's just not what I go for.
Yeah.
So I eat a lot of beef, a lot of like ground chicken. I'll eat, but chicken breasts, like,
and I really like it. But I mean, I take the time to prepare it. And then he'll go out and he'll grill it, or sometimes I'll cook it on the stovetop. And typically I'll cook it plain and then I'll add seasoning on it when I'm ready to consume it. But I mean, I always think, I'm like, thank you for cooking the chicken for me, because he doesn't overcook it. I was raised on chicken on the grill. My mom would cook things to death times 10. So I mean, it was already dead, but like
choking on it. Yeah.
God, so dry. I had no idea that chicken breast could be juicy.
Oh, yeah.
And flavorful.
Oh, yeah.
And
My
not burnt.
breasts are always juicy. I actually had some today. I had some last night, ate some of it today.
Yeah, that's the thing. So like, how do you plan for the week? You were just talking about sort of how you plan your meals. I think planning for the week for us, going back to the shopping trips. So there are two things here. It was like, one was the trip that we took and how we handled the shopping there. And then what we do on a regular weekly basis, every Saturday or Sunday, just depending on how the weekends go, like that is grocery store day. And we've made this a team approach. Neither of us love going to the grocery store, but we've learned how to divide and conquer, where we can get to the store that we go to, and we go out of our way to go to a store that we know has the things that we need and want. Again, going back to the types of proteins that we get and so forth, and the variety of stuff. We go out of our way to go there, so we have to make a little bit of a drive there. And we get in there, we fucking conquer that thing in like 30 minutes.
Got an agenda.
Less than 30. Yeah. We can get in and out of there very quickly.
Got a route.
But again, it goes back to, we know what we want because, we eat very much the similar things.
Well, we eat the way you just described. It's like there's a protein, right? Mm-hmm. There's vegetables. There's a lot of green vegetables that we eat, and then there's going to be some type of a starch, not with necessarily every meal, but there's going to be a starch in there sometimes. So we just plan, it's like, what do we need? Well, the things that we eat from a starch perspective are going to be your potatoes. There's different types of potatoes that we eat, so we do keep a variety there. Yeah. Sweet versus like russet, and then like the
little colored potatoes.
Colored potatoes, or the Yukon Gold.
Heirloom ones.
Yeah, so we'll
purple ones.
We always have stuff around, so it's like, do we need more of this or don't we? Like, do we have some left over from the last shopping trip or don't we? So, we'll pick that up. Or white rice. Like I do eat quite a bit of white rice as a starch. Interestingly, like I don't eat a lot of it. Like people like, my rice cooker's going all the time because I eat that much rice. We end up throwing it away, if we make that much rice. So we keep little portions of it. Like we'll make it a little bit at a time because we do vary it throughout the week. It's not all rice all the time. There's different types of potatoes or whatever. We try to keep it interesting.
Sometimes you've done like the rice noodles for like pad thai.
Yeah, rice noodles. Yeah, and that's not a regular thing, but it's like that's how I eat the chicken. Like that's where she can put the chicken in that, and I'll eat that. But
disguise it.
Yeah, it's got to be disguised. It has to be dressed up. I can't eat it by itself. But when we go to the store, like I already know. Like I get in line, and the guys behind the meat counter, they know me now. Like they roll up their sleeves and they're ready to go. Because when I go to the meat counter, it's like initially they were looking at us funny when I go to the meat counter, because like I need 4 pounds of that 99 or 90. 10 ground beef, the ground chuck. I need 2 of those pork loins down there. I need 3 chicken breasts. Like I'm walking out of there, like a third of our cart is full with proteins. And when you look at the percentage of dollars spent, across the board, the majority of the dollars go into the protein sources.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I have no problem with that. I just know that going in. But we go to the meat counter, straight to the meat counter. It's like I buy all the meat I know we're going to need for the week, and then generally a little extra. So, like we'll always have something around. So, and we make that for our lunches or to change things up or basically just kind of is like backup. And if we don't eat it, like it goes in the freezer. If we know we're not going to eat it, we eat out very rarely. So we know what the routine is every day. So I think dividing up the shopping trip and if you can do it as a team, I think that's a really good idea, because obviously it makes it faster. Everybody has to suffer together. And then there's also that's the time to answer questions, or like, here's the other part. CC eats shit that I would never eat. right? and I eat some things that she doesn't eat or eats very rarely, and I know what we're running low of in some areas, and she knows what we're running low on in other areas. So things aren't missed, because there's nothing more frustrating than spending all this time planning to go grocery shopping, getting home and going, fuck.
Forgot the eggs.
I forgot the eggs, or whatever. And so we've actually divided it up into, like I just told you, I'm the meat counter dude. Like while she's, doing something else, I'll be over at the meat counter. While she's getting vegetables and produce, I'm in the dairy box. I'm getting the eggs. I'm getting the yogurt. We eat like that Icelandic yogurt. I'm getting, like, if I'm buying egg whites from this particular store, like I'm getting the egg whites. Like I'm loading up the counters or the carts. So like it's all coming together. And I think, if you have a plan when you go in, a plan of an attack, it's just like going to the gym. You can make it happen very fast, and you stop missing things. There's aisles in that store I've never even been down. I'm like, do I need a mop, batteries, notebook paper? I don't need any of that shit. Or that is we don't eat a lot of bread or wheat. So like, I don't even know what's on that aisle. Like on occasion it's not that I don't eat it. We just rarely eat it. I don't eat it daily. So like, I don't know what's down that aisle. I don't go down that aisle. So we're just like, we're jamming through there. Yeah. We're jamming through there pretty fast. So part of it, I think, is like getting through the making it not as less inconvenient as it needs to be to do this. And if you have a routine, while that might sound boring, it isn't boring, because we just mentioned, like, there's pork, there's chicken, there's beef, all different types of beef. We eat a lot of shrimp. It's a very low fat, high protein, food. We don't eat a lot of fish. We don't prepare a lot of fish at home.
Like it, but we don't prepare it at home.
Yeah, if we get fish, we'll go do sushi and dog some sushi or something.
We can swap some fish recipes.
Yeah, it's more about cooking it and smelling up the house. And I always fuck it up. Like I always cook it too long or whatever.
It can be a little bit touchy. But salmon doesn't stink too much.
True.
Good salmon.
True.
It doesn't stink too much.
Yeah, and I'll bake that generally. Like I'm not trying to do anything else with that. But so I mean, that's kind of how we handle grocery shopping trips. Like when we went on this, if we're traveling, and people know that we travel quite frequently, we'll scout out like where are we staying and where's the local Sprouts or maybe more organic Whole Foods type grocery store or market. And this is like on the road food or on the go food. So this might be more the type of shopping that somebody could do for themselves if they are that type of on the go person. They don't like to do a lot of cooking. There's a lot of stuff that we get pre-prepared and is very portable, like when we're on the road. And that would depend. Like this last time we were in a hotel, so we didn't have the convenience of having our van. Like we do have a travel van, and we can get some stuff done in there in terms of cooking and, have a refrigerator, a microwave, stuff like that. We had all that in the hotel room, but it's also like you don't have all your utensils, your cleaning stuff. It's a little bit out of sorts. So there was a Sprouts right down the street.
So, I mean, hard-boiled eggs. I came across some of the grass-fed, grass-finished beef sticks. They have a variety of different flavors. I personally like smoked oysters, and so they have smoked oysters in a can in olive oil.
Disgusting.
Oh my God, it's so good.
Delicious,
but
actually.
It's 150 calories. You've got, close to 20 grams of protein.
High in protein, some
good fat.
Some omegas in there.
Yep,
yeah, you
exactly.
gotta get on board with the oysters.
I can't.
And the sardines and the anchovies.
No. So the sardines, I know people do those. My dad did them, and I remember eating them as a kid. I couldn't get close enough to eat them now.
But it's portable. It's easy. Yeah. I mean, there's the baked pork rinds that I really like that, you tolerate.
The company, Epic makes those pork rinds.
Crunchy, salty,
They are good. You can't, like that was what I was saying, you can't make a meal out of that, but it does hit the spot. They're fairly low calorie, higher protein, processed, whatever. But,
I mean, Sprouts had some already prepared shredded chicken and some turkey cutlets that, I think was breast that they sliced in a little container that you can go. They had fish and stuff like that. They had sashimi in there, so you could take it and go. What else? Fruits, all different types of fruits. They also have the cottage cheese if you do dairy, cottage cheese in a single serving, as well as in all the different types of yogurts. And then we like pickles.
There. Yeah.
Yep, we like pickles, the kind that you find in the refrigerator section where it's natural brine, not necessarily vinegar based. And you can get them in different serving sizes there as well. So I mean, there's a lot of things that you can get at the store that's not a huge portion that's gonna get you by for a day or a couple of days. And that fits in your hotel refrigerator.
Yeah, I mean, I'm big on, I mean, if we're talking Sprouts, I know not every store has the type of like bulk bins that you have at Sprouts, but you can still, I get nuts a lot. I mean, I have a bag right over here that is like a trail mix it's walnuts, it's cranberries, it's blueberries. I think there's a couple other things in there, but that's very easy, very portable snack. It's calorically dense. So if you are somebody that, maybe I personally have a higher caloric need, but I don't always have the time to consume 3,000 plus calories. So, few handfuls with almonds, walnuts, I'm getting a lot of calories for a small portion.
Yeah, if you're an endurance person, like I was that way for a long time, there were a lot of bars and like trail mix type things that I was getting just to get the calories in. And I was also spending a lot of time on the road, like commuting from place to place for work. And so that's a really good case for eating the higher calorie or higher, and it's also nutritiously dense in terms of vitamin, mineral profiles, calories, to get that stuff down. And it generally tastes good, right? Like you can find there's so many different ones, particularly like in the bulk bins, like we got 20 different varieties.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to buy a bulk, obviously you get in the like everything's like a resealable Ziploc package now. You have to be careful with that for the same reasons you just said. Like if you're on a road trip and you start dipping into that trail mix bag, and the next thing you know,
calories can add up quick.
They can add up fast.
That's where the little pre-packaged ones are a great find.
Yeah. Calories and the sugar could add up quick,
real fast. So again, if you have a caloric need there, then do it. Just be careful with that. But I think it comes, circling back. It's like, what can you run in and get? Like if I'm on the road and traveling, I know I'm going to be like class to class or like venue to venue. Like you mentioned the hard-boiled eggs, the already done hard-boiled eggs in the bag that you can find over in like the egg or dairy section in the cold box over there. Like I buy several bags of those. Like, and one of the things about that is like they don't necessarily need to be cold all the time. They don't need to be refrigerated. So you could go the whole day, most of the day without them being in the refrigerator. They actually put a gas in that bag to preserve them. So, they don't spoil as quickly, even if they weren't refrigerated. So people are like, oh, how do you keep them cold? You don't necessarily have to keep them cold all the time. Like if you hard-boiled them and left them on your counter in the shelf, they would be just fine for weeks. So it's just, again, so something to think about there in terms of a convenience food, but like, that's the one we hear the most. Like, what's the toughest thing? It's the protein generally. So it takes a little bit more planning, but when you're on the, to cook it, but to your point, Cece, there's a lot of those things that are pre-made or ready to roll.
We love those tuna packets that you can get. You just tear off the top, and I mean they come in different flavors, dill, and I think I don't know whatever else. But there's plain. They also have the tuna with the pop top cans.
Still,
they do it with chicken and salmon as well. So that's super convenient.
Yeah, it's for the on-the-go person or somebody that just doesn't have a lot of time to cook or doesn't want to cook. Taking those things and putting them on, your veggies at night or whatever is an easy way. Like I hear people going like, oh, the vegetables, it takes so much prep. I got to clean, I got to chop, I got to cook, all this stuff. Well, anymore you can find half the job is done. Like they'll chop it up for you and they'll put it under a cellophane wrapper and you can just dump it in with, however you want it to be, where you steam it or saute it with something or throw a little olive oil in there with some salt and pepper.
I know one of our coaches, he takes, this is more for at home, but he takes the frozen vegetables and he'll put them in his to-go container. And then they're frozen. And then by the time he gets here for lunch or whenever he gets to eat, they're thawed. Ready to go.
Yeah, by the time he shows up, or by the time he's ready to eat them, they're good to go.
Yeah, frozen vegetables are not. I think people think, oh, it's frozen, therefore it's bad. Frozen vegetables can still have high nutrient content, especially if they're frozen immediately after they're picked. Frozen foods are fine.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. So like all the things we're talking about, like I did say, you said trail mix, and then I said, when my caloric need was much higher, I would go to bars. There were certain types of bars that I was getting into, but a lot of people think like, oh, I need my protein, so I'm going to go. They go straight to the snack bar area. Like, and what I mean by that is like the bars, the little bars in the packages, like your Builder bars and your Cliff bars and those type. They go to that area and they're like, what's the one with the highest protein? I need this. And you just went through 10 other different ways you can get a much better protein that isn't, you're not onboarding a bunch of other stuff with, like preservatives, sugar,
the oils,
and things like that. Like I get it. Like I've had some good bars out there, but I generally try to stay away from those. I don't really enjoy them. It's more of like I need the calories, or I'm in between, classes, and it's almost never a protein bar, a quote unquote protein bar anymore. It's more like I like the Lara bars.
Yeah.
They're easily put down. They're a couple hundred calories. I don't have to worry about them melting.
Yeah.
Like I can throw them in my dump pouch on my belt if I'm at the range, or in my backpack. They can get smashed. I can throw them in a side pocket or whatever. They get smashed on the airplane. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Versus like getting like, I don't know, like one of those bars that has like wafers in it, which would generally be my choice if I was going to a protein bar. There's a couple of those out there.
Power Crunch or something
like that.
Yeah.
Try putting that in your backpack and, see what that, try opening it up. Anybody that's done this knows, like, you open it up and it like starts snowing, chocolate or vanilla flakes all over your shirt. And then as soon as you try to pick it off with your warm fingers, you just push it into the material.
It's all melted.
Yeah, it's all melted. And I look like a 4-year-old.
Yeah.
Like a 4-year-old who was trying to eat his lunch. So I usually don't go to those. And I think a lot of people think, oh, what's the snack bar? What's the protein bar I can get to make up my protein need or whatever. I don't recommend those.
So when I was at Sprouts the other day, I went down the protein bar aisle, and I had a really hard time finding a protein bar, because one of the guys that we were with, he's like, yeah, just pick me up a protein bar. Whatever you would like, you would consume. And I looked at, I don't know how many different ones, and I really didn't like them because I was looking at the calories, I was looking at the carbohydrates, I was looking at the protein. And the protein, just there wasn't enough protein in it where I thought it was a decent bar.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's a challenge. I think people run into the same challenges. Like if they're like, well, I got to get some fluid on board or whatever. So they go to they're looking, they have all these choices, like over in the drink area, like in the cooler section. They're like, oh, look at all this shit. Like what am I going to choose today?
Candy store?
For me, I go to water. It's water every time. I like cold water. And then I'll bring along like some element packets or whatever and throw in there to flavor my water. But it's generally water every time. I think people are like, oh, what's the healthy thing? Should I drink kombucha today? Should I have, and which one should I have? And there's calories in there.
Most overrated health food is kombucha.
Yeah, and overpriced at the same time. So overrated usually comes with overpriced. So
tasty, but
just, go with water. These are things I think people like, they create challenges for themselves that don't necessarily exist. You're going to the store, you're going to a restaurant, you're going somewhere for food anyway, in some way or form or another. There are many other alternatives. I mean, those are just some suggestions. I think it's a little bit of like how you manage your time. What is your plan for the week? What do you know? And then what are your needs specific to, like, hey, I need this much protein, so I need to make sure I get that on board and have it ready, because those are usually the harder things to get. And look for the more whole food, selections where you can, because it's almost always in a convenience package now. You can find something.
Yeah, it's not really that hard to get something that you can just throw in the microwave. And I mean, we haven't touched on it yet, but I also, meal prep services. There's more meal prep services now than there's ever been before. Yeah. And for a lot of people, that could be, a good option. You go in to, whatever, if they have a physical location, you go in, you select the meals that look good to you. Maybe you build your own meals or customize them to what you're looking for. You get a stack of them, put them in the fridge, throw them in the microwave. There you go.
Yeah, it really is that simple. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. And you can do it online. I mean, you're scrolling on your goddamn phone anyway through Instagram or whatever else.
Yeah, they'll deliver it to your house.
They'll literally drop it off at your house, or maybe even at the gym that you work out at or whatever. It's a lot of the gyms. And if you have a question like, where's a good one? Talk to people in the gym. They know. Somebody knows. And a lot of times they have a deal, where they have a exclusive pricing with them, and or they'll deliver it to the gym. So the place that you're already going anywhere a few days a week, you could pick up
your meals.
Yep,
Yeah,
you don't have an extra stop then.
Yeah. It's a matter of like, it's overcoming the obstacles and eliminating the hurdles. And we've talked about those things before, but that's just some of the things, that we do to get through the week. And it really, again, it's planning. It's making sure that, you know what your needs are, and you're not guessing from one thing to another. And then when you run into those little challenges along the way, you have some backup plans. Like, okay, well, I swear to God, you can walk into like an AM PM and find hard-boiled eggs in it. If that's what you had to do. And there's protein bars there if that's what you had to do. And there's plain water there. It's just a matter of making those choices and being aware when you walk in, and try not to do it after 7.5 hours of driving and just being
willpower
cranky.
is low.
Yeah, the willpower is low, like I had at the dinner table the other night.